Welcome to the Good Listening To show. I'm Chris. What's your story, Grimes? Stories of distinction and genius. This is the show that's been likened to having a day spa for your brain in an oasis of kindness. And if I may just position this as the world burns, how refreshing. And also, hello to America from the point of view. This show now also trebuchets, favourite medieval instrument, to the States, because this syndicates, apart from to UK Health Radio, this show also syndicates to Brushwood Media, where apparently tens of millions more listeners await us to hear our show as we broadcast. So yes, Chris Grimes is me, but more importantly, this is the enigmatic Jon Kaye, who's arrived in the clearing to share with us his story of distinction and genius. I'd like to position you, Jon, if I may, as an enigmatic free thinker. You're a co-founder of Do Radio, and you're a presenter of the Tomorrow's World show. And I love the fact that that made me think immediately, because of the title, of Raymond Baxter, Aging Us All, who was the original presenter of the inaugural show of Tomorrow's World on the BBC, not to age us both, but as we were growing up. I've just noticed your picture's looking quite pixelated, so I'm hoping that this signal is going to be okay. But Jon Kaye, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me. Yes, I'm glad it made you think of the old kind of is the point. We sort of talk about technology on that show. So Tomorrow's World, an appropriate throwback.
Wonderful. And we're doing a wonderful reciprocal arrangement in that you're in this show this week and then I'm coming to Tomorrow's World being in a week's time. And whilst we get the technology right as well, my podcast editor, Dan, knows exactly what to do. But I am noticing, just checking the technology, that you are lagging slightly. How is it for you on that side?
It looks fine for me this end.
Yes. Now I'm just intrigued by the introduction was great, and we can stand by that. If you're watching, thank you for bearing with. I'm just trying to get you to stop being quite so fuzzy in what it is I'm noticing. So yes, we'll get on the open road in a minute. This is all imminently editable, as we'll get onto in a second.
Yeah, it's fine this end, actually. You're fine.
The most important thing is the sound in any case. So come in Tokyo, it looks like. So where are you dialing in from, Jon, first of all?
I'm in London, southwest London, next to the river, or close to the river.
Lovely. And because of your close association with Do Radio, David Hyatt, Mike Coulter, and the whole sort of stable of the Do lectures, I always assumed you might live in Cardigan next to David Hyatt in a similar cow barn, but absolutely not.
No, big city for me. I have been out to visit David on his farm, but it's a long old trek from here, 6 or 7 hours west from me.
And I remember he made a virtue out of that, apart from running the Hyatt denim factory and all of that shebang back in the day. He made it deliberately out in the middle of nowhere. So if you want to go to the Do lectures, you've really got to want to go to the Do lectures.
Yeah, I think I quite like that, actually. There's a bit of a theme with what he's done and what I've done, like friction. Friction's important. Let's not make things too easy. So, Do Radio is a radio show, and people don't really understand what that means in 2026. It means that there's a schedule. You can't download it. You can't pause it. If you want to watch my show, then you have to tune in at a particular time. You used to when the TV and the wireless was first invented. So it's a bit harder than, and that puts some people off, and that's fine.
And the other thing that I know, weaving David Hyatt's magic, I know this is about you, but I love the fact that he's also got the fax club, which is another really difficult thing to even find an old fax machine, let alone join the club.
Yeah, exactly. He has a whole series of crazy ideas that shouldn't work, but somehow do. And yes, trying to get hold of a fax club in 2026 or 2025, whenever he started it, and then writing a fax back. I mean, why would anyone do that? And yet 100 people signed up and did for a year.
And apparently about 50 of them all actually met in the same room globally through the fax machine in a room in London recently. That proves that Enigma works.
Yeah, and something that is remote, and this thing was anonymous, can still work to community and eventually an in real life meetup where people actually, met the people who they'd sort of bonded with and connected with over the internet. And there were people, I think, from as far away as California and New York and Netherlands and Germany. And amazing.
And of course, in the modern climate, the mayhem of the fact we're all feeling like we're barking into a sea of noise, community is absolutely key, because it's about remembering in this world of AI to keep it warm, to keep it human, and keep it connecting through the idea of community, which of course I know is one of the main thrusts and purposes of Do Radio.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of drives everything I do these days. But yes, in particular, Do Radio these days. Let's get people listening together. Let's get people talking. Let's give a voice to the people who might not have a voice in this kind of noisy world. That's what we're trying to do.
And my current sort of own opinion and antidote to that is we all need to be a bit more hummingbird, as in be quiet, majestic, swoop in, get the nectar. And when you've gone, everyone goes, blimey, what was that? So to your own newsletter, Unmastered, it's about how to create without chasing, which I think is a really nice resonance.
Yeah, I mean, partly, when I started writing it, which is over a year ago now, I've probably written 18 months of consecutive weekly letters. And originally, of course, to nobody, right? I'm shouting to an empty room or performing on an empty stage, whatever, and with, advertising, and I could easily have thrown some money at it. I decided not to do that, for better or for worse. It's more the act of doing it. I enjoy doing it, and my small audience who have signed up enjoy doing it. They stay with me, they comment, and at the moment they don't leave, but it's not huge, and that's fine, right? And that's sort of what I'm trying to, we don't all need to be, global superstars and throwing money to Meta to advertise and get more people in. We want a small audience of people who really like what we do.
And of course, that's the foundation stone most profoundly of a true community, because it's built on a bedrock of wanting to connect. And I'm a recipient of Unmastered. There's a very exciting section at the very end called Show Us Your QR Code, Please, where I'm going to point listeners to exactly where those watching and listening can go and find your brilliant newsletter, Unmastered, which is about thinking clearly, living deliberately, and creating without chasing. Just to blow a little bit of positional happy smoke at you, you're all about helping founders to see differently. And what's intriguing about you, Jon, is you've been, and this is my own couching of it, to burnout and back. You were back in the day, serving the desire to create from a sort of, I need to finance myself point of view. You were doing 100 hours a week with life passing you by, but now you're on the more enviable open road of living a freer, more meaningful life. So that's just my way of positioning a bit of happy smoke at you. What would be your own answer if someone doesn't have a frame of reference to what Jon Kaye is all about now? What would you say at that clunky networking event? Yes, we're a community, but hello, Jon Kaye, what are you all about? How do you like to answer that?
Yeah, well, actually, I do struggle to answer that, is the honest answer. My worst or most hated question in the world is, so what do you do?
Exactly.
As if what you do defines who you are. But I guess I do have to try and answer it. My wife struggles to answer it for me as well. I like to say...
like that. I've no idea what he's doing.
No, exactly. He's down in his studio and something's happening. I guess creativity is I've gone from a world, and I'm sure we'll get into it, of a job and a career that had very little creativity. And I decided that I hated it eventually. It took a while to get to that point. And now I try and say yes to as many things as possible, like coming on your wonderful show today, like getting involved with Do Radio when I have no broadcasting, no radio, no interviewing experience whatsoever. But every day now I try and, I guess, flex that creative muscle. I write music, I interview people. I don't do much drawing or art, but a lot of what I do and what I'm thinking about is creating something from scratch. And getting involved with Do Radio was a great outlet for that. And talking to wonderful people on the show sparks things for me, like whether it's writing music or, I do some video for Do Radio up on their YouTube channel as well. So just anything like that I guess brings me joy, to use a kind of trite phrase. Like that's my goal in the day.
So finding purpose is the key there. So doing stuff that you enjoy, and of course we'd like to think that the world is cured. Just follow your passion, and the money will follow. But I think you went about that in the right way. You sacrificed a lot of life in order to get to the point where I think the private equity allowed you to then get on the open road of now. Because I remember researching you, which I greatly enjoyed. You actually retired, but of course didn't retire at the age of 40 to spend more time with your family and travel the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah, so I spent half of my career just chasing money to the exclusion of anything else, to be honest. Family, friends, special occasions, I missed weddings, I cancelled holidays, I did all that, work kind of nonsense, which I now think is so ridiculous, but I did it, and it's allowed me to do what I do now. So it's, the kind of classic two mountain of life. The first mountain is trying to work out where the second mountain should be. And look, I don't regret anything I've done, because otherwise I wouldn't be here. And during that years, it was a choice. Nobody forced me to do any of that, but I did reach a point where I decided that actually family and my children and connections and friends and doing other things is much more important to me. And I've managed to build up a bit of savings buffer so that I am now able to, as I said, put money way down the list of things that drives me every day, and work on things which are hopefully inspire people listening to the radio show, hopefully inspire my kids to learn that actually just, finishing uni and becoming an investment banker is not the only path in life. And I think if I hadn't made that change, they might just have ended up following me. And I really hope they don't.
And coming full circle, that's what's really beautiful about the positioning of your Unmastered newsletter, because unmastered means you're still working it out, but it's think clearly, live deliberately, and then create without chasing, which is a thing that I find so resonant. I love that. So with your permission, and your picture comes and goes a bit, but the sound sounds great. And that's the most important thing, because this is mostly a sort of sound broadcasting entity, a bit like Do Radio. So with your permission, it's my great delight, honor and privilege to now curate you through the carefully curated storytelling structure of the Good Listening To show. There's going to be, Jon Kaye, a clearing a tree, a lovely juicy storytelling exercise called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's going to be some alchemy, some gold, a couple of random squirrels, a cheeky bit of Shakespeare, a golden baton, and a cake. Hurrah! So how'd you like them apples to start with?
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about, Chris, but
yes,
let's dive in.
Good luck with that. So energetically, if you've not seen the show before, where have you been? Because we're about 275 episodes into this particular series of monkeys that I keep curating, and I love doing it, as should hopefully be obvious as we go through What's Your Story, Jon Kaye. So energetically then, just to go back, it's just to reassure you, not a memory test. I'm going to curate you through a bit like a downhill slalom ski through various storytelling gateposts. So first of all, your clearing is your serious, happy place. You may well be sitting in it as we speak. I don't know. I don't mind. Everybody answers this differently. So what is your clearing, Jon Kaye? Where do you go to get clutter-free, inspirational, and able to think?
A couple of places probably, but I'll say here, like if people are watching the video, I'm sat in a room full of music producing equipment. I have keyboards and drum machines and old synthesizers and analog stuff, and literally about a mile of cables as well, which some of them are hanging up behind me, some of them are the other side, and it is it's been a labor of love building this place over about 7 or 8 years. And I guess the reason why I would say that
your curtain of cables behind you, I wondered if that was one of those glitzy sort of curtains that you used to go through into a nightclub or something. But actually, I now see, again, because we've got a bit of pixelation going on, but it's actually a curtain of cables.
You can't see it, but over here I have a whole wall of they're called modular synthesizers, and they are little units that you literally plug together with these cables, and you create your own signal path. So it is very creative. It's very modular. So one thing on its own doesn't do anything. You need a whole series of them, plug them together, and they make a sound. And it's it's, again, going back to the point of friction, it's slow, it's frustrating sometimes, it's complicated, but that's what makes it fun and rewarding. You don't just, hit a button on AI and some sound comes out, or even with a keyboard, you don't just press a key and voila, a sound. Sometimes that is good, but sometimes you want things to be a bit harder, actually, because the outcome, when things are hard and you really know what you're doing, you don't know what you're going to get, and that's sometimes, not always, that's sometimes where the beauty happens.
Love that. Friction is good, and that's where the beauty happens. That's lovely. It made me think of whenever you do a new music project, it's a bit like the equivalent of rewiring your brain on the daily, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to make songs and make music. It's very difficult to make something that sounds like you or sounds like nothing else that's ever been done before. That's much harder. But if you have almost like a random workflow, it makes the output, given that you don't know what's coming out, then the audience doesn't either, and they'll be like, whoa, that sounds interesting, I haven't heard that before. And that's part of the fun of playing with sound and playing with music, at least for me.
That's a wonderful metaphor in and of itself of the nature of true creativity, trying to find authenticity in the sea of noise that we're all in.
Yes, and the beauty of this room is this used to be my study. So when I was working in private equity, different desk and a computer on it and a printer, and all I did was the work, and I had files, my shelves to my left here, which are out of shot. And now the desk is different. It has all these audio equipment. My shelves are full of vinyl and books about music and music theory and, famous musicians, how they write songs. So it's just totally changed.
It really is Jon Kaye's man cave, is the music studio. Is it in a basement or is it in an annex?
No, it is in a basement. It really is a man cave. People come around and wander in here and they're like, oh my God, because it's like there are flashing lights. It's like some sort of spaceship. And to be honest, most people who have no idea what any of this does would have no idea even where to start. And that's almost part of the fun as well. That's this kind of mad spaceship that I'm in control of.
The mad spaceship that Jon Kaye is in control of. I love that. And I'm coming on the next space sortie. That's fantastic. Did you happen to watch the Harry Styles stuff that everybody watched? Because he's gone very techno in terms of gadgetry that we're fiddling around with as we watch it.
Oh, I haven't actually, but that's a good recommendation.
So on Netflix, there's lots of, he's just absolutely stupendously he's just brilliant in what he's doing, but there's lots of, I think, inspiration by spending lots of time in Berlin. What do I know about Harry Styles? But there's a new cut and thrust to a bit of techno, which is giving the sort of basis of the sort of the backbeat, if you like. Again, what do I know? But that's what I experienced. So it's a similar man cave that he projects from as well.
Okay, worth checking out. Thank you.
So sorry I interrupted you. We're in your clearing, which is potentially your man cave, but you said there are a couple.
Well, I guess I do a lot of my writing outside as well. So given that I spend a lot of time in this dark basement underground, I have a dog and I live by the Thames, and together walking most days. And that would be another happy place. I usually stick on my headphones. I'm not much of a chatterbox when I'm on walks. I usually either listen to music or I listen to the radio. But I often write. I write on my walks, so I have ideas. And, when you're not thinking about anything, that's usually when you can think about the things you really want to. So that would be another place where if I don't get out, I do miss it. And so I end up probably going every day.
That's very resonant. The best ideas happen outdoors, and if in doubt, walk it out is a couple of maxims and mantras that I enjoy too. Very relatable. And what part of the Thames are we walking next to, so we can put a flag in the sand, or a tree, as I'll explain in a minute?
I live in Putney, so I walk down to close to Putney Bridge, and then I walk west close to Hammersmith Bridge and do a bit of a loop and come back.
So if I may, I'm now going to arrive with a tree in your clearing, which is quite comic if I'm going to plant my tree down in amongst your mile-long curtain of cables. And it's a bit of a hybrid because we could be next to the lock, next to the Thames in Putney. I said lock because I know that Michael Palin's favourite place is Teddington Lock, where the fish slap dance happens. And rather beautifully, he's coming into the show at some point soon in the next few months. Anyway, sorry. So we're in your clearing. I'm now going to arrive with a tree in your clearing, and we're going to shake your tree to see which storytelling apples fall out. How'd you like these apples? And this is where you've been kind enough, Jon, to have thought about 4 things that have shaped you, 3 things that inspire you, 2 things that never fail to grab your attention. And that's where I'll explain, that's borrowed from the film Up, where the dog goes, oh, squirrels. And then the 1 is a quirky or unusual fact about you we couldn't possibly know about you until you tell us. Again, just to reassure you, it's not a memory test. So going back up to the canopy of your tree to shake it as you see fit. First of all, 4 things that have shaped you, Jon Kaye.
Well, I guess the first obvious one was success. It was quite a big moment in my career. So I was working at a large global firm. I was in my early 30s, just learning my craft effectively. And, being worked to death by my boss, like any young person working in the city of London, which is where I was working. But I'd always felt like I'd wanted to be more in control of my destiny. But working in private equity, which is a massive industry, it just seemed so out of reach, because you can't just start a business. You need to invest other people's money. So you need to raise tens of millions of pounds. So there's a huge barrier. And in fact, very few people had ever started a new business in the industry. All the industry was dominated by, decades old companies and businesses, and they just dominated, and that was that. And then me and a couple of colleagues who were working in industry but a different firm, we just had a crazy idea that maybe we could do this. We'd had a little bit of success. I was still only 32, 33. But we put together, like a pitch document, like a very boring PowerPoint presentation about why this might be a good idea. It was only, 20 pages or so. And we started talking to people about, do they think this was a good idea as well? And somebody said yes. They did think it was a good idea. Gave us enough belief to resign and leave and start trying to do this thing. And I guess, I can cut to the end in a second, but I guess the reason it was so pivotal is because everyone thought we were mad when we did it. The job I had, the job my 2 fellow founders had, was an amazing job at that stage. We were in a growing industry. This is obviously going back 20 years. The money was good to amazing. It was almost a guaranteed to road to riches. Nobody had ever to do this before. So when I said that I was going to leave, my wife thought I was mad. My friends thought I was mad. Everyone at the firm thought I was crazy. My bosses thought, everyone thought this was nuts. Which definitely gave me, because these are quite smart people. But we did it anyway. I just moved house. My wife was pregnant with our first child. It was like the worst possible timing. We then spent 2 years with no salary in our early 30s with a young baby and a new house, trying to get this business off the ground. And we did. It had a ending this story. We raised 225 million pounds. We got the business up and running. We ended up employing like a dozen. We ended up having a successful 10-year run before I then moved on. So it was a happy ending, but I guess, that years was tough.
And what I couldn't help hearing you say was the extraordinarily profound gatekeeper moment. Somebody said yes. So do you still remember exactly who that person was? Who was that somebody who said yes?
Yeah, absolutely. Like that meeting is on my memory. I'm not gonna name him. He's a well-known person in the finance industry. He had huge credibility. The fact that we even got a meeting with him was unbelievable, because it was literally the 3 of us. We had no business. We had 3 of us and a 20-page document. And we walked out the meeting and he said, yes, I believe in you. I'm going to commit 50 million pounds to your fund. Yeah.
Wow.
To be honest, for him to say that was remarkable. That gave us the impetus to then raise the rest of it and get above the 200 million and basically have a firm. But yes, that walking out that meeting was life-changing.
It sounds a bit like it might have been somebody of the caliber of Jamie Dimon or someone like that who basically said, it's the man from Del Monte, not calling him that. But do you remember that? We talked about Raymond Baxter earlier on in terms of retro memories. But it sounds about whoever that enigmatic person was who said yes, that was like the man from Del Monte.
Yeah,
he said yes.
He did say yes, and he was credible, and he gave other people confidence that if he believes in us, then maybe they can too. So yeah, I mean, having that, if it was another human with some money, then it might not have worked. He had a name and a brand and credibility. So yes, it was.
So it's a bit equivalent to a wind forward as many years as when since that was. It's a bit like going to get a great success in Dragon's Den, where all 5 dragons turn round, basically.
Yeah, I mean, having. You always need a bit of luck. We'd had lots of meetings before that meeting, and everybody had said no. So you don't need. I mean, I guess the point of there are these moments where you can't really predict them. They're kind of out of nowhere. You don't know which meeting people are going to say yes. The chances of, as I said, even being in that room was pretty low. So
yes. So a destiny moment. How extraordinary. So that's not
really
surprising. What I also really enjoy is your life began in terms of what you've decided shaped you when you left the sort of the corporate beast to form your own corporate beast. But that's when your life began in founding your own company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great
first
shapage.
The motions. Sorry.
Great first shapage. Again, apologies if occasionally I'm interrupting. It's because the sound sounds okay, but the visual is still really glitchy. But as I say, the most important thing is we're capturing the sound, which is the most important thing. Second shapage then, Jon Kaye.
Well, I guess following on from that story, the second moment is when I left my startup a decade later, equally significant. So by that stage, I'd been working in finance and private equity for about 20 years. And it had just, for, I don't know, 18 or 19 of those years, it was fantastic. Absolutely loved almost every aspect of it. But it just, I don't know whether I'd been getting older. I was approaching 40 at this stage. But things had definitely got less fun, more stressful. Relationships with my founders just got a little bit tired as well. We were at that stage in private equity. You do these, when I said we raise this money, you do these funds in sort of 10-year blocks, and there is a sort of natural end. And then you do another 10-year, do the next fund. So there is a cycle. It's not an ever, sort of, there's set changes. So we were at that point where do we do fund 2? And I just didn't want to do it. Like, as convinced as I was to do fund, I was equally convinced that I had no desire to do fund 2. So I left. I didn't just walk out, it was just a decision amongst the 3 of us that time was right. I didn't want to do it anymore. And they were fine with that. I came back home to my wife and our now three children by this. I said, I've left. So just as people thought I was mad to leave my original job, I was probably equally mad to leave this fantastic little startup business that we'd got off the ground. I said, I need to do something completely different. And I think I mentioned this week that this was probably burnout, but you don't really call it that. And I don't know whether I felt that. I just felt kind of exhausted and needed a change. And actually, I just didn't enjoy what I was doing. Like, it was just about money and growth, about anything else really. And so at that point, I said, right, I've got to have a complete change. So we took our kids out of school. They were 7, 5, and 1, just about 2. And we went traveling around the world for a year. So literally just dropped out. I had my gap year, student year, when I was 40, 41. And that was amazing.
So you bunged your family in a metaphorical papoose, because you would have had to have done that with the 1-year-old, and then off you went around the planet. So that's really a brilliant way to airlock into what's next. And by the way, that's what second curve is all about. We're all on a curve or a trajectory. Your curve begins to wane, but what do you do to attach to your second curve that's going to pull you towards your future? And interestingly, resonantly, as a facilitator and a coach, I sort of cut my teeth on a lot of the private investment banking. I was in Canary Wharf an awful lot, working for the likes of JP Morgan, Barclays. Loved it, great privilege, but my soul didn't chime, shall we say, in Canary Wharf.
I can understand that.
Wonderful interpretation so far. Now we're on to the third shapeage, I believe, Jon.
Well, I am going to go back in time now because, as I said at the start, everything now revolves around creativity and trying to use that kind of spark. And somebody kind of made me realize this earlier this year on my own radio show, that actually go all the way back to GCSEs for me. So back to school. At school, I was all about science and numbers. I mean, no surprise I went into finance. Maths and science was my thing. I found it interesting and easy, and things like languages and English and reading books were a necessary evil that I had to endure until I changed class and I had an English teacher called Mr. Venning. And we read a book called The Heart of Darkness, Joseph Conrad, I think the author. And it's an unbelievably dense, difficult book to read, a typical kind of, English literature student book. And I really struggled with it, to be honest. But somehow he made it come alive, and he changed my view on this book, which I frankly probably hated and now kind of love. And he just changed everything about reading and interpretation and creativity and, things that can mean more than one thing and different people's opinions. And I went from a solid C student at English to getting an A at GCSE, and actually wanting to take it on and do A-level. And so even though I then went into finance and kind of parked that bit of my brain, I do look back and think actually that was probably the moment where he sparked in me that I could do something creative. Because I think a lot of us get creativity sort of beaten out of us, whether that's work or, if you try and sing something and you sing out of tune forever, you're this person who can't sing. And that's, a shame. And anyway, yeah, so Mr. Venning, shout out to him.
And is he still with us, Mr. Venning? Is that how you spell it? Venning?
And he actually taught, he's retired now because I think he's 80 or thereabouts. He actually taught until he retired at a school very close to where I live now. And he actually lives around the corner. So I connected with him. I haven't actually met him in real life, which is a shame because I should do. But we have chatted on LinkedIn, would you believe? I have no idea why, but we did connect. And so I did relay this story directly to him. So that was a nice moment.
And if I just may nudge you, I think that's such a gorgeous story and testament to his wonderment in your life. I would make a point, commit out loud that you're going to go and say hello to him and say thank you.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I could literally walk to his house. So it's.
And what a gift that is to be around the corner from that man.
Because I didn't go to school here, so I met him I was in Worcestershire, like near the Welsh coast, the Welsh border. So like the fact that he's now, and we both moved, and obviously time has passed. Yeah, amazing.
Great. And now thank you for that. And just give us the title of the book again, just to reincorporate deliberately.
Yeah, it's The Heart of Darkness, Joseph Conrad, and it's a tough read, but it's not very long, and it's well worth it.
And I also couldn't help hearing, in the same way that you said, someone said yes, you said someone reminded me. So I think you're a very good listener, because every now and again, somebody says something that you're never going to forget. And then it colors in, life colors in backwards. Yeah,
I've got better at listening over the years. I think my wife would attest to the fact that I wasn't very good 20 years ago.
Again, that's relatable. My family think it's ironic. What? Good listening to, but you're going deaf. Anyway, but anyway, all good. Wonderful. So I think we're on to the fourth shapeage now, Jon. This is wonderful stuff you're giving us. Thank you.
So for this, I decided to choose learning to make music. So this goes back to lockdown, where we all took up hobbies because there was nothing to do. We baked bread and we did lots of other things and learned to, I don't know, code or play cards or whatever it is that you did in lockdown when you were desperately bored. I came across this class, the masterclass series, which I don't know who does it, but the masterclass thing. I don't know if it's a thing anymore, but Gordon Ramsay did a cooking show, and there were acting things. And anyway, there was this one on making music by a guy called Deadmau5. That's his kind of stage name.
Did you say Deadmau5?
Deadmau5, yeah. MAU5, dead, MAU5. He got the name because when he was making music, his computer stopped working and he opened it up and there was a dead mouse inside. Anyway, he's a Canadian dance, like EDM, electronic dance music, kind of legend actually. And he's hugely successful, covered with tattoos, totally different to me. And he did class, and I started watching it and I was just hooked. Like, he has a room that's kind of like mine times by about 10. He's hugely successful, so he can afford all the gadgets. Anyway, I just devoured this thing, and it was weird because I've always loved music, listening to music, going to gigs, being into bands, always been a part of me, but I've never actually made music. It's almost like I didn't realize you could, just with a laptop and a bit of software, you can make a full track and release it. And most people do these days. They don't have any kind of keyboards or things. Most of it's done on a computer. Anyway, it was weird. And this just opened my eyes. Literally even the name of the software that you can use to make music, I'd never heard of it until I watched this thing. And it's been out long before this course. So I could have come across that anyway. And that has then just started me. Yeah, and now you can see this room. That was the start. Before that, this room had no music equipment in it at all. So he just sparked something, and yes, we were bored and like hungry for something to do but it was just that, oh my God, I can actually make the stuff that I love listening to. And obviously at the start it was crap. People would say that it's still not great, but I think my music today is a lot better than it was.
Again, another adage that's come to mind: what's meant for you won't pass you by. So apart from those two conversations when somebody said coming across Deadmau5 with a 5, what a great moment.
Yes.
Was it just experiencing it remotely as a sort of pixel on a Zoom call, or were you connecting with him to get one-to-one coaching?
No, it was pre-recorded. Like, anyone could sign up to it. It wasn't anything interactive at all. It was just knowledge, like just being fed at me. And
so Deadmau5 doesn't know that he's a great influencer or shapeager of Jon Kaye.
He doesn't, and I'm sure he doesn't care. But nonetheless, he was and what was really funny, just as an aside, the very first show I did for Do Radio, number 25. So we've been going 6 or 7 months, not as long as you. I had a guest on the show who is all about AI, AI art. It's what he does, and we ask him these questions: your favorite song, your favorite book, your favorite quote. And his on my very first show was a song by Deadmau5, and so we then went on rant for about an hour about how amazing this guy was, and it totally threw my first radio show totally off plan, but it was brilliant.
So you went into a sort of super geek rabbit hole, for want of a better word.
Absolutely, yeah.
Love that. What an extraordinary series of shapeages. Thank you very much indeed. Now, moving down the trunk of the tree, we're on to 3 things that inspire you now, Jon Kaye. And if there's any overlap, that's completely understandable. But 3 things that inspire you.
Yeah, and there is overlap.
Your sound has just definitely glitched now. So, sorry, I've lost you for a moment, Jon. Are you still there?
Oh, you're definitely glitching now.
Yes. Again, Dan, my podcast editor, will know exactly what to do, but let's just go back a step. Are you still there, Jon? Come in, Tokyo. The quirks of the interweb. Okay, so we're into 3 things that inspire you.
Yeah, so the first has to be music. I have obviously just been talking about make was a big part of my teenage years. I think it is for a lot of people, so it's not unusual. But I really enjoyed going to live music in particular, getting into bands, learning their kind of backstory, the meaning behind the songs. And it just, so then when I went to see them live, it would just be a whole kind of interactive experience. I absolutely loved it. So much so that, sad to say, I quite often went to gigs on my own back then when I was a teenager. I don't know why. But, sometimes the bands I really liked, nobody else really liked. I'm just like, well, they're here in my local town, whether I was at school or I grew up close to Manchester, they're coming to Manchester. I'm just going to go. I don't care. Like, there'll be lots of people there, lots of people in the same mind space as me. So I just used to go and used to love it. I still love it. I still go to gigs now, and I'm really old now.
And what bands are we talking, Jon?
Oh, now you're taking me back. Well, I was a bit of an indie kid. So this is back, I'm talking about the Pixies, Wide, the whole Manchester scene, Stone Roses, Happy Mondays and Spiral Carpets, anything like that. I was all in.
And may I ask, what's your favourite piece of music? I know you just mentioned you do that in your own show, but if you had to pick one as being that's Jon Kaye's sort of soundtrack.
It's always difficult because I think, like a lot of people into music, it changes depending on mood, depending whether somebody has reminded me of a band that I liked from 20 years ago. I usually, when people ask me that, I usually go back to The Cure. The Cure is a band that I have been listening to, since I was 15, right from the very start. And I still listen to them today. They came out with a new album last year or the year before, and that's still good and on repeat sometimes on my phone. So I'm not going to choose a song because there's so many.
If I may, I want to press you to choose a song because Dan is brilliant at texturing in music at this point as a bit of a gift.
Oh, no. Okay. Okay. Well, I will go back to, there's a song called The Edge of the Deep Green Sea by The Cure, which always gives me goosebumps, even now, which is remarkable because I've heard it about 1 billion times.
So here comes some goosebumps for you. Thanks, Dan. You're a legend. Okay, so now we're into the second thing that inspires you, Jon.
Well, I'm going to have to plug my radio show.
Of course.
Not just to plug it, just the people I get to talk to are genuinely inspiring. Like it's an easy conversation to have because they just have done some amazing things. So, I mean, this week, for example, I have a woman on the show called Hannah Nunn. And we're ostensibly talking about business and doing business in the right way. And she has set up this coffee business, Kickstart Coffee. So you can buy the coffee. It's great coffee. And it's a very small business. But she started it and she gives 100% of the profits to a Ugandan school and the local area to pay teachers' salaries, pay school fees for children who can't afford it, donate coffee trees to the local farmers, who then cultivate land, grow the coffee, which she then buys to sell back to corporates in the UK. So it's a way of giving to charity, but in a way where people are getting something out of it. Like they're getting a product that they would probably buy anyway. If you buy coffee, you might as well effectively buy it from her. But it's just like, why give 100%? And she just says, well, why wouldn't you give 100%? Like she's just remarkable. Like so she was a nurse. She's not an entrepreneur. Well, sorry, she is now. She was a nurse on a kind of career trajectory. She wanted to be head nurse. She was successful running big departments. And even when she was doing that, she said she ended up giving 50% of her salary away to this Ugandan school. So even before... May I ask
what part of Uganda it was? Why I'm asking is I grew up in Uganda between my being 2.5 and 10. So
no way.
Resonant.
Oh my God.
I was in Jinja, Jinja, which is 50 miles away from Kampala.
Right. There's a mountain near there called something like Elgon or Eldon Mountain. That's where the coffee's grown. I would have to look it up. She's on our website this week. And I think it tells you the region and the areas, but I don't know Uganda very well. So it hasn't stuck in my memory, but I can't believe that coincidence as well. But just as an answer to your question, people like that,
yes,
they're just doing extraordinary things. And hopefully we're giving a little bit of voice to them. So that people listening can be inspired, either just to support these amazing people or do so. If you're thinking of starting your own business, there are and it's not all business, but there are shows about creativity, but just, I think almost anything on our show, on our station, we have 8 shows, just constantly gives me sparks of inspiration. And I know I'm part of it, but I'm also a listener, because there are lots of shows I'm not involved on.
And what an extraordinary testament to the true nature and the beauty of philanthropy and altruism, because to give 50% away of a nurse's salary, for heaven's sake.
I mean, yes, like amazing. People think giving 1 or 2% is like, I mean, she is probably one in a million, literally.
And do you remember that Homer Simpson joke? I like to give 100% at work, 15% on Monday, 12% on Tuesday, and until it adds somewhere near 100%. But she is the absolute altruistic antidote to all of that. Literally giving 100%. That's staggering. So I think I'd very much like to meet her myself, actually.
She's remarkable.
Yes. Wonderful. What a great inspirer. And now the third thing that inspires you.
This is a cliche, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's my family. I've thrown quite a lot at my family, as you've got a sense of the love now, from, leaving a well-paid job when my wife was pregnant, and she just left her well-paid job to be pregnant, I guess, and to raise the kid. And she didn't bat an eyelid, she's just like, yeah, okay, let's do this. Let's move on to this next chapter, to then coming home and saying, right, let's go around the world. Let's take these kids out of school, with the youngest still in nappies. And we were visiting countries that didn't even have nappies. You couldn't buy them. So we did not make things easy.
I wish your first name began with an O, because she could go, okay, when you come back with your next cunning plan.
Yeah, I think she probably has a deep intake of breath when I say, I've got another idea.
Would one of your children have a name beginning with O, like an Oliver or something?
No, we did think about that, and we just thought the potential for too much abuse at school was too high. It could go either way, right? So no, we avoided that.
Lovely. So yes, I think we've done the inspiring now. Now, very excitingly, this is the squirrels. This is borrowed from the film Up, where the dog goes, oh, squirrels. What I like about this is we've all got 2 monsters of distraction, sometimes called your shiny object syndrome. What 2 things never fail to stop you in your tracks, Jon Kaye, irrespective of anything else that might be going on for you?
Well, the first one, again, if anyone's watching the video, is obviously music gear. Gadgets generally have always been something which I'm quite keen on. My wife still reminds me that I was one of the first people to get one of 3 video calling phones when they first came out, and they were totally useless, and the screen was like 1 inch square and blocky, a bit like this podcast if we haven't got the technology sorted.
Yeah.
And I would be video calling her late in the office, and she was in the office, and she'd be like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? Why do I want to see your face? Obviously, it's a bit more normal.
This will never catch on, Jon. What are you talking about?
So no, gadgets have always been a bit of a soft spot, and now there's a whole world of music gadgetry, and they even have a name for it in the music kind of industry called GAS, Gear Acquisition Syndrome. And I try hard to resist, but I sometimes fail to resist that squirrel.
So what's the most recent GAS that you've acquired?
Well, I have a couple, actually. I have one on my desk here, which won't be, but I will show you to you anyway. So this is a very simple box, very beautiful, actually, if you can see some of the artwork on it, made by some, literally by a Dutch guy. I mean, that's this industry that is literally mum and pop. So there's a bit of circuitry in there, and that particular bit of kit is a feedback machine. So when a guitar gets too close to the amp and it makes that kind of feedbacking screech.
Yeah.
Well, he has designed a whole machine to make that noise, but make you able to control it a bit more. So you can really play with it and filter it and put some effects on it. And I mean, if you've ever watched a horror film, this thing can basically do the whole soundtrack. I don't know how I'm going to use that for my music, but it's so cool to play with.
And if you want to give the inventor of that some feedback, see what I'm doing there, you can say, hey, that's awesome. Thank you very much.
Exactly. It is called the Audrey 2 Horrorscape Synthesizer. There you go.
And now, rabbit hole, you're going to go and find Audrey 1, aren't you? Because that's 2.
I don't know what Audrey 1 was. That's a good point. Maybe it's just the first version that he didn't end up selling, or maybe I've come across it when he's already perfected it. I don't know. Good question.
Yeah, bit of feedback for you. Lovely. Second squirrel.
The second squirrel is more about ideas. I am a sucker, going back to David Hyatt, I guess, for counterintuitive ideas that seem stupid. So when I got an email from him, as did 30,000 other people. I'm not saying I'm special here. He sent out an email to his newsletter list saying, I've got this idea to start a radio station in 2025 in a world where nobody knows what the radio is. I'm like, yes, that really appeals. That's really stupid, right? Really, that will never, ever work. And then once I start thinking that, I'm like, okay, why might that work? Why might I? So whenever I can go deep in YouTube, whenever there's somebody talking about something which is very common, but they have a different take, that really gets my interest. I'd like to know why. Are they just being nuts? Is there a point? Are they just being, counterintuitive just for the sake of, clicks or whatever? Or is there something there where,
yes,
they've latched onto something that the mainstream or the majority have missed? I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and resonantly as well. I was a recipient of that very same news. I
there you go.
Listening to you show into the same. It's very exciting. David does excite a lot of people because the first thing I ever experienced was this idea, which totally grabbed me. It wasn't the radio. It was the idea of a yellow front door in the middle of a field near Cardigan, and I just thought, boom!
No,
I love
great.
that.
Yeah, great image. That.
Yeah. Wonderful. Great, squirrels. And now the one is a quirky or unusual fact about you, Jon Kaye, we couldn't possibly know about you until you tell us.
I guess this will mean more if you're looking at the video, looking at the bald, slightly out of shape person in front of you. And so despite the fact I'm 53, I spend a lot of time sitting on my arse making music. I'm actually quite fit, or I have been until relatively recently. So I have run probably a dozen marathons.
Wow.
I have cycled through the Alps from Geneva to Nice. I have done 2 half Ironmans and 1 full Ironman. So if there's any kind of long distance, aerobic, crazy, stupid events that takes hours and hours and hours, I'm actually surprisingly good at that.
I'll be your huckleberry if it's got pain attached to it for the gain attributed to the doing of it.
Pretty much. That's me. I love it.
Wonderful. Again, every now and again, there's a bit of glitching sound, but we're okay. I did get that. So now we've shaken your tree. Hurrah. Now we stay in the clearing, move away from the tree. Next, we talk about alchemy and gold. When you're at purpose and in flow, Jon Kaye, what are you absolutely happiest doing now in what you're here to reveal to the world?
Well, I guess that has to be the consistent theme, making music. I'm actually a trained psychologist. So I have 2 psychology degrees, one in experimental psychology and one in sports psychology. So I love the idea of flow, which is actually come up with by a Polish psychologist, whose name, by the way, I can never say. So I'm not going to
just to stop
really,
you, the sound's got really glitchy suddenly. Again, we will edit this out, but just go back a step. It's wonderful what you're saying, but I'm sorry.
Really sorry about that. It's fine from this end. So I don't know, and I've got my Wi-Fi seems to be strong, but you never know.
I'm
I
not
guess
blaming it. It could be my end too. So I'm just making, because I could hear the glitch there. I'm just wanting to make sure. So we're on to the when you're at alchemy and gold, when you're at purpose and in flow, what are you absolutely happiest doing?
Well, I have to stay on message, and it is making music. The flow is actually from a Polish psychologist, and I'm a trained psychologist. I have 2 psychology degrees. So the concept of flow, which I know is bandied about quite a lot these days, is actually a sort of scientific term that people can get in, and there's lots of analysis and research about how you get into that state. But it's that time when you're doing something and you just lose hours, right? You lose time, and there's a few things where I can get that, but these days, making music, if I have an idea and I have some sort of spark of inspiration, I start exploring it, I start playing with different sounds, and suddenly I'll look up and it's literally like 3 hours later. Wow. I'm like, where has time gone? and I have the flexibility in my days. That's not a bad thing. I can afford to lose time, but I love it when it happens. It doesn't happen all the time, obviously, but sometimes you just get lost in that. It's just, I love it.
And is the process in and of itself enough? You know, your lovely mantra about creating without chasing. Do you need to publish something, or is it just that's that rabbit hole done, now to the next rabbit hole, or are you always trying to publish?
No, definitely the process is the main thing. I mean, it's nice if somebody listens and says, "Oh, I quite like that too." You know, I don't think any human would say that somebody saying something nice about a piece of work that you've produced is a bad thing. But I don't go out of my way to push it onto Spotify. I'd say, you know, I don't know, 60, 70, 80% of the music I make never leave room. Loads of it. And I can go back and I listen to a lot of my old stuff when I'm out walking to give me inspiration, because it's amazing how I can listen to something I made a year ago or 18 months ago, and it just feels like it's a different person. It doesn't feel like me, just because the process is so, it's almost, you don't know what happens next. So the end result, it's hard to trace back to the start. So you end up with this thing, you're just like, wow, was that me? And then I can then go back, take that and turn it into something else.
And do you have a sort of an alter ego when you're creating music, like Dead Mouse, or is it just Jon Kaye?
Yeah, I have a few. So, so I do actually now make music for Do Radio under the name JRK, very unoriginal. So the music you hear on the show, all written by me, and that is great. So that does give me an outlet. I'm now going through a process where every month on the show, I take something on our show that has inspired me. So there are 8 shows a week, so a 32 month, and I either take snippets of the audio, so people talking, in other words, and conversation, and I put it to music. Wow. So every month there is a new Do Radio song that's inspired by our guests. So that's nice.
And may I just ask the question? You don't have to say yes, but when you listen back to this, is there any way that you might consider laying a soundtrack to the rhythm of this conversation? I'd be intrigued by that.
I certainly try.
You don't have to say yes. That was just like, I can't, because it's such, you know how other people begin where you end. You have a whole musical capability that I know that I don't have, but I have an enjoy of the rhythm of language where there could be something as feedback, if you like, using that, not that gizmo necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, I never know what is going to inspire me. That's the only thing. Like, I think if I'm given a particular brief, that might be that maybe that's the next challenge. If somebody, and I am actually talking to somebody because they've heard the music on Do Radio, can we do something together? So at the moment, it's almost reactive. Not quite, because I have this sort of monthly deadline, which is nice. But it's almost whatever I want, whatever I feel, whatever happens. But if somebody said to me,
down eight tracks a month or a week because of the Do Radio shows?
No, 1 a month, but based on something on that. And they're all up on, I went to 2 lectures. I do a little video sort of behind the scenes. I obviously played the song, but I like, this is how the story, that you like stories. The story why I decided to do this, and the process, and almost and where we ended up. And so that's nice, a nice sort of track record of where the music's coming from.
Wonderful. And now I'm going to award you with a cake, Jon Kaye. So do you like cake, first of all?
Absolutely. Who doesn't like cake?
Is the right answer. That we're like-minded. So what's the cake of choice, please?
What is the cake of choice? You mean I can just choose a cake?
You can choose a cake, and you know, when I get proper funding, I'll actually send you the cake. But
nice.
So what type of cake would you like, Jon Kaye?
Okay, I would like a Battenberg cake, please. I absolutely love almond, marzipan, anything like that. So almost anything with marzipan. Christmas cake is a favorite, but a Battenberg is a classic.
You know, in my circa 270 episodes, no one's yet prescribed a Battenberg cake, and that's very retro as well. Get in. Okay, you get to put a cherry on the cake now with stuff like, what's a favorite inspirational quote, Jon Kaye, that's always given you succor and pulled you towards your future?
Yeah, well, I know what it is, but I can't recite it to you, but it's very easy to look up. So it's the man in the arena quote from Roosevelt back in whenever it was, 1920. And I have it framed in my downstairs loo to hopefully inspire my children. So I do see it every day, but it's the concept that ignore the critics, right? You're the one in the arena, the people shouting from the stadium, you can ignore them because they're not there. And you actually have to be there and you have to do your thing and actually be the man in the arena, and everyone else and all that noise, all the people who said I couldn't set up the business, that's all irrelevant because you and your partners are there in the arena. And I love that.
I know exactly which quote you mean. That's fantastic. Thank you. With the gift of hindsight, what notes, help or advice might you proffer to a younger version of you, Jon Kaye?
I would probably embrace balance a bit more than I did. I've had two halves of life that are almost the exact opposites, and I don't think it needs to be like that. I think I could have had a bit more balance in my early life, which would have maybe kept me on that path longer, whether that would be good or bad, but I didn't have to just exclude so many things, I think.
So there's a slight sort of a frisson of regret of the first half of, if it's a game of two halves, using the football analogy, you have your regrets are in the first half mostly.
Yeah. Like I missed, family weddings because I was at work on a Saturday, like doing something which is, with hindsight, totally pointless. I missed nights out and birthdays and things which are just much more important.
What a wonderful, wise thing to tell yourself. Wonderful. Now we're ramping up in a moment to talk about Shakespeare, to borrow from the 7 Ages of Man speech to talk about legacy. But just before we get there, this is the pass the golden baton moment, please, which is they don't like it up, and Mr. Mannering. Now you've experienced this from within. Who might you most like to pass the golden baton along to in order to keep the golden thread of the storytelling going, Jon Kaye?
Yeah, and I'm afraid on this one, I'm going to politely refuse. I don't really like the idea of pushing someone else to do something. Okay. I'm not that this is a negative experience at all, but, and this isn't the only reason something like this has happened, but I don't like the idea of, I've done something, I think I love it as well here, and sort of push them into the spotlight. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to decline on that one. There's loads of people who would be great on your show, but I don't think it's my job to push them towards you, if that's okay.
That's a great answer, and respect, completely understand. So if you're listening, there's a free golden baton going. If you want to get in touch, think, oh yes. Anyway, so there is a carpe diem of the baton if you want to. Okay, inspired by Shakespeare now, all the world's a stage and all the merely players. When all is said and done, Jon Kaye, free thinker, curator of the Unmastered newsletter. How, when all is said and done, would you most like to be remembered?
Yeah, so I struggled with this one because I'm not sure legacy building is a healthy attitude to have. And I know we don't want to talk about politics. I certainly don't, but the whole, trying to have a legacy on the world and get your name on a building and, solve all the world's wars and start another half a dozen world's wars to create regime change and anything else we might talk about. I just think it's often a driver of some of the problems we've got in the world, where people are trying to think, shit, I'm running out of life here. What am I going to leave behind? Yes. I think my biggest legacy is, and hopefully they will stand up to it, is the kids, the next generation. So my children, hopefully they will learn lessons from me and my wife and other people as they get older, clearly. And they will then leave the world in a better place, as hopefully I am trying to, and they will hopefully then go on to inspire, and who knows whether they will or not, but your hope is that you've given them the tools to navigate this complicated world and that they do the right thing. So I'm going to pass the golden baton on to them to do the right thing.
That's a perfect answer. It's playing it forward in a micro way in terms of, the dint on your own family legacy, which is beautiful. I love that interpretation of that. Wonderful. So now we're going to do a very exciting thing, which is called Show Us Your QR Code, please. If you've enjoyed listening to Jon, the first really obvious thing you can do is connect with Jon Kaye on LinkedIn, where he's listed in this wonderful photograph with an orange background. If you're watching, a Do Radio presenter, music producer, and writer. So anything you want to say about what we'll find all about you on LinkedIn, Jon?
Well, my LinkedIn is all about Do Radio these days. And it's all about me trying to write as well, I guess. So I'm trying to encourage people to listen to the show, the radio show. But I like writing. And so, as I said, I do the weekly newsletter, which is a slightly longer thing, but I think writing on LinkedIn is a slightly challenge. So I try and take some of the lessons from my guests and turn them into mini stories to try and inspire and obviously get people to try and listen to the show. But I think it's a good practice. So I try and write 5 days a week. It's a writing exercise, I guess. So, but hopefully interesting. So I'm getting better at writing, I think, every week. So the little snippets of whatever they are on, it's only 250 words or so each post, but it takes surprisingly long to get right and to really do well.
Love that, which is a perfect segue into the next QR code, which is about your newsletter, Unmastered. Think clearly, live deliberately, create without chasing. And because of the Do Lecture connection, it's a bit like this is your version of Do Magic. I do really like what you're doing within it. So talk us through the where we can find out and what the Unmastered, anything else you'd like to say about that?
On the QR code, unmastered.life is the website. And I mean, it's a bit random, I have to say. There isn't much of a consistent theme, but I try and talk about things in a little bit of a counterintuitive way. I try and say things which a lot of people are maybe thinking, and I try and it's very much me. So, I'm afraid you'll get swearing in there because that's how I talk. And it's written by a human. So you'll get mistakes and typos, and there's no preaching. There's nothing to sell. I'm not pointing you towards something where you need to do something else. It takes 5 minutes maximum, Saturday morning, every week. Most people seem to find it quite interesting.
And the thing I most resonated with in your last one, where you're talking about spirituality is not the answer, which was your opinion, was about how brilliant dogs are. It reminded me of how dogs exist in the clock of now, where they go now, 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 and wag tail accordingly as the rhythm beat of how to be truly present.
Exactly.
And I got that from your last Unmastered, so I think it's fantastic. A couple of announcements from me. If you've enjoyed listening to me and Jon on this show, if you'd like a conversation about guesting too, the website for the show is thegoodlisteningtoshow.com. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are also now trebucheting to the States, my favorite medieval instrument, the trebuchet, because of the fact we syndicate to Brushwood Media. And also for the last couple of years, in fact, 3 years now, it's been syndicating to UK Health Radio as well, where potentially millions of listeners await you to tell your story in the clearing if you'd like to share it. Very excitingly, one of my favorite series strands, this has been a founder story, a story of distinction and genius, but it's about recording one's life story for posterity, lest we forget before it's too late, either your own story or, of course, gifting it to someone that you love without any morbid intention. And you'll notice that my own father was a very willing guinea pig. My dad died about 18 months ago, but I recorded my father in the halcyon days of his 80s, as I now realized in hindsight, before he slipped into a crater of declining health. Again, no morbid intention, but that's what Legacy Life Reflections is all about. This has been your moment in the sunshine, Jon Kaye. Thank you for bearing with me as there's been a couple of technical glitches as we've gone along the way. But as this has been your moment in the sunshine, is there anything else you'd like to say, Jon Kaye?
Please listen to Do Radio. Not necessarily for me. It's not about me at all. I'm just a doorway into some wonderful guests. We have 8 shows, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Please check it out. There is always something of interest on there. Thank you, Chris.
You're very welcome. And I very much look forward to actually being a guest myself, if you're still up for that, in a week's time when I'll be on Tomorrow's World myself.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. Anything else you'd like to say, Jon?
No, all good.
Thank you. And thank you very much indeed for listening. I've been Chris Grimes, but most importantly, this has been Jon Kaye. Listen to Do Radio. Thank you very much indeed. Good night. I shall end stream there. End stream. Sounds like a sort of important sort of